I'd say there's potential.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well, the years start coming and they don't stop coming. Fed to the rules and I hit the ground running. Didn't make sense not to live for fun.
3, 2, 1. In Chatelet, buckos, and welcome to Polecat cast number 127. Zoe Quinn's book and more, where our trusty and stealthy polecats will be ferreting out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Mind your spines for the cringe, hold on to your sides for the lulls, and keep your chemo at the ready for this cancer. Today's polecat panel consists of Max Darrett, Simpsons kin, and definitely not Bumblebee. And when I say that, I mean Generation 1 Bumblebee, not that monstrosity from the Michael Bay version that has that terrifying yokai mask for a face.
Goddamn right.
Polecat Punster and Pussycat Punisher Hannah, Dr. Randomer Cam, Britain, Panda, Puppet Master, and Rabid Long-Range Rhetorician, and me, the Supreme Doge in Charge, with my trusty Doge whistle so I can transmit my suspected white supremacist messages to the secret patriarchal network. Today, we will be discussing the following topics. As we know, there is no group more oppressed, more put upon, and no group more misunderstood than those looking for safe haven from their lost nation of Kekistan. Bungie was on the verge of giving the people of Kekistan a proper representation in their newly released AAA game, Destiny 2. Unfortunately, they have pulled the imagery because they now believe it is a symbol of hate. What would Pepe do? Evergreen State College has settled a tort claim against it from embattled Professor Brett Weinstein, and his wife, Professor Heather Haying, for $500,000, according to an email sent to faculty Friday evening. After alleging the public university permitted, cultivated, and perpetuated a racially hostile and retaliatory work environment. But is this not the monster that Weinstein helped create? Next story. If you tell anyone I cheated, I will ruin you. Cambridge Don is cleared after his PhD student fiancée accused him of assault to get back at him for calling off their wedding after she had affairs in Galapagos Islands. Is she guilty of these things, or is this just toxic, or is he actually guilty of these things, or is this toxic femininity at work? A new Powerpuff Girl has been introduced. And because her skin color happens to be a little darker than the original trio, and her hair is blue, it would seem that this is a step forward in progress. Is it, though? Or could it just be an attempt to make people give a shit about this reboot that nobody seems to be watching? The first reviews to Zoe Quinn's book, Crash Override Network, Gamergate, and the Battle Against Online Hate, are beginning to surface from the black ooze that is white knight yellow journalism. If you think the review gives Gamergate a fair shake, or is critical of Zoe's own words, I have a real live unicorn to sell you, along with a sack of magic beans. Or maybe just a bean. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Portland, Oregon is one of those places that is overlooked as a hipster progressive hub, especially because it's on the left coast alongside San Francisco, Berkeley, and LA, which are basically progressive meccas, and overshadow it significantly. But it still has some ideas that border on lunacy as it too makes the long march towards utopia. And in so doing, the Portland Comic Con, known as Rose City, has taken a strong stance against offensive cosplay. That's right, you can now no longer cosplay as Hydra members or the Red Skull because Nazis. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows either as an audience member or as a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Now, before I hand this off to Max to give us the first story about Kekistan, I'd like to do some shilling. YouTuber Miss Anonymous, who does frequently do streams with Bane666AU and also has her own YouTube channel where she discusses men's rights, is looking for video submissions for her For Me YouTube charity channel. A link to the video is currently included in the low bar. Give it a watch after the show and see what you can do to help. Secondly, in Australia now, the statistics for male suicide is nearly all demographics are currently on the rise. The professionals are now advocating that we change the strategy of silence and try talking. Crazy idea, that. They are urging men who have tried suicide and survived to talk. But sadly, in our culture, people often switch off when this happens. But stories are different, as are songs and poetry. Though, through millennia, this is how we have communicated survival. Interestingly, when Northern Ireland was embroiled in the Troubles, it spawned great plays, songs, poetry, and films. And yet their death rate was less than our suicide rate, which now stands at over 8 a day. And our great loss spawns nothing. Same with the Afro-Americans and their endless struggles. Their pain gave birth to the blues. I believe it's time to use art to fight the silent epidemic. This is why I wrote Suicide Row. In its second reading, I stopped the actors halfway through and asked everyone to realize that they were laughing. And it wasn't an irresponsible laugh, but the play has funny moments because as humans we breed humor, as though humor was a tool we were given to survive the pain. And here we are, laughing warmly in a play about suicide. We don't need more suicide awareness. As we all know, it's a grim and growing problem. We need to attack it head-on with art pieces that motivate people not to take the final step. We need a journey into the darkness to try to reach the dawn that's on the other side. In fact, there might just be no other way. Suicide Row is powerful, but not bleak. It's funny, but it's not black comedy. It's about men who are suffering, but it manages to celebrate their beauty and resilience. It has politically incorrect moments, but it is not cruel. It's just 4 worn-out Australian men rediscovering their hunger to live despite the confusing bullshit of our times. It's a beautiful story, and please help us spread the word. There is a link to the play and the information around it also in the low bar. Give it a look after the show. So, thanks for hanging around for my overly lengthy intro and summary, as well as the shilling. And now we're going to get into the stories. So first person to talk, as I tend to like to give him the first swing, is Max. You're going to tell us a little bit about Destiny.
All right. Well, first of all, hail Hydra. And second of all, I believe before we go into this particular story, I think it's customary that we all give a praise Kek. Praise Kek.
Praise Kek.
Praise Kek.
All right. And may Kek be with you.
The thing that
and that's when you're supposed to say, and also with you, if you're Catholic.
I'll say what I want to say. I don't believe
if you're what?
Mike, you're really low, man.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. Anyways, what?
Did you say if you're Catholic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, isn't that what Catholics say at the beginning of their sermon?
Yes, actually.
Okay. Except instead of Kek, it's like, may God be with you and also with you. Anyways, we're not here to talk about religion. We're here to talk about an alternative religion. So, Kek manifests in Destiny. See what I did there? So, my fellow Titans, Warlocks, and the obviously superior Hunters. Video game developer Bungie Studios released their newest title, Destiny 2, roughly 2 weeks ago. Now, despite the fact the title currently has 1.2 million concurrent players across all platforms, the title has received mixed reviews. Some praise its tight gunplay, its improved story and musical score. Others criticize its emphasis on grinding, the lack of innovation in the core gameplay, and the fact that they can't seem to get a flying vehicle into their game, despite the fact that you could fly a Banshee in Bungie's most famous title, Halo, back in 2001. While all of these are valid comments, all of them are of such little importance to that particular crowd of gamers who believe everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is homophobic, and what do you have to do, Brian?
You have to point it all out.
Goddamn right. Well, apparently eagle-eyed professional complainers noticed that a particular piece of armor in the game looks a lot like the logo on the Kekistani flag. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kekistan is a mythical, fictional place where its denizens worship a frog god named Kek. I might be wrong about that. Please correct me in the comments if I am. Kekistan and its corresponding symbolism emerged from 4chan as a parody of Nazi ideology and imagery. However, to a lot of people, they don't seem to get the joke, because the piece of armor has been deemed a quote-unquote hate symbol that has been quote-unquote repurposed by neo-Nazis, according to Ars Technica, but that's the sort of thing you'd expect from that website. Bungie quickly removed the armor and apologized. Oddly enough, the design has nothing to do with Kekistan or Kek and was originally created back in June of 2015. It is just a pure coincidence that both look so similar, but God, it looks so close, except for that like one line in where there's supposed to be an E, right? Well, while I think this is a stupid thing to get upset over because Kek and all of its surrounding imagery and meme magic is supposed to be a parody of white nationalism and white supremacy, I believe, there's some other valid opinions to consider. Has Kek been appropriated like the Nazis appropriated the swastika? And regardless of whether or not the answer is no, do we blame Bungie for bowing down to these people? Discuss.
This is stupid. That's all I have, really. It's really dumb that that this obvious parody of a flag specifically made to to sort of like to troll people, is being taken seriously. I don't. It's just really dumb. And then Bungie would, because I know this stuff costs money, that they would spend the money to essentially do the programming work that's required to either remove the piece of armor completely or simply just redesign it to look different. It just seems like a really stupid waste of time. And like, how did they? Okay, here's another thing. I'm sure that when they put the stuff in, they were thinking about whatever their own kind of logos were from their own in-game or in-world fucking story or whatever their mythos, world building, their own mythos. Yeah, they just throw that in there. It was just like, when you play Borderlands, there are these made-up super corporations. When you play other games that have them, you'll see that. And it's actually supposed to be, give you the feeling that you're immersed in this world and that there's like companies and brands that exist and they use them. The fact that they would have to feel the need to rebrand just based on the fact that it looks similar when it clearly isn't supposed to be. It's just kind of a happy coincidence. How did they even learn about this, I wonder? Like, did some SJWs see it and they said, oh my God, do they realize what they're doing? Like, as though they were actually putting a swastika on it. And if they did actually put a swastika on it, would that really be the same as advocating that? Because that would mean that people who have made like World War II games where Nazis are in them and they wear swastikas and there are flags with swastikas on them, would that mean that those people are actually advocating that stuff? If you're playing a video game where you're fighting against communists and there's like, the hammer and sickle on there, are you advocating that stuff? Like, I don't know why this is the response. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just really dumb, and it's a waste of money, and it's also a dumb thing for Ars Technica to even report on. But considering that Ars Technica, if I remember correctly, was part of Gawker Media, it doesn't surprise me. And
Kyle Orland wrote it to any of you guys who remember him back in Gamergate days. Anyways, Hannah, you were going to say something?
Yeah, it's really respectable as far as the trolling end of it goes, to see how far this has gone. Because I mean, I thought free bleeding was funny because so many feminists adopted it, but this this is both great and terrible. I don't think any group of people, at least in my lifetime, has been trolled this effectively. I don't think anybody's been trolled this effectively since the original radio broadcast of War of the Worlds. And that was accidental. This was deliberate. And these people fell for it, picked it up and ran with it, and then adopted it. And now it's like I don't know, monkeys playing with poo that pick it up and fling it at everybody and rub it on themselves. It's sad and hilarious and a little horrifying, and yeah, it is a huge waste of time and money. It's actually gotten expensive now, but it all goes all the way back to being trolling.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, but I can't stop laughing about that.
It's so dumb. I wanted to also tell you something before you continue. For those of you guys who are watching, I'm using a different sort of chat interface to display. It is something that compiles the chat from every place that we're streaming to. So I cannot ignore or accidentally or not see the folks that are using Twitch, the folks that might be using Ustream, the folks that might be using various other streaming services that we happen to be on, Facebook, whatever. So if you're on any of those platforms and you want to make comments, I will be able to see them and I'll be able to comment on them. But I have to do it like live because I to log in and do it, I'd have to log into every single account. So it's better if I just do it vocally. So if I see anything interesting, I may come in and just say something. So Davey1602 said, no, I'm sorry, I got the wrong guy. Firebat47 said, all they did was remove the lettering from the armor, but it doesn't look as good, though. And that's another thing I was thinking, like, if you were somebody that, you know, got a piece of in-game clothing or a weapon or whatever, just like a piece of equipment, an article for your character, which affects what your character looks like and everything, and then they change it, wouldn't that piss you off? I mean, like, if you liked it especially, because I know from playing games that have customization options or armor and loot and stuff like that, if you get it and you think, oh, this looks cool, and you put it on, and then they change it, even if they change it to something that isn't as bad, I think that players are going to be kind of bummed out because it's not what they, you know, it's not what they originally signed up for. So I think that that's something else to point out. This could upset the people who bought, you know, who either bought this piece of armor or they found it somewhere.
And this is going to turn into a Streisand effect too, because people who are wearing that piece of armor really liked it and then had it taken away are inadvertently going to learn about the wonderful land that is Kekistan and praise Kek until the end of their days. Yeah,
exactly. And then lastly, somebody else said, man, War of the Worlds was top fucking Kek. And I think that he's... that's actually
around back then.
Yeah, Kek was around. He's always been with us, Max. And
God bless Orson Welles.
Yeah, and Orson Welles, he made it possible. And I think that's actually a good point to make because for those of you guys who may not know, War of the Worlds was a fake radio broadcast. It was basically a story that was done in the form of a radio broadcast that appeared legit, done by Orson Welles about an alien invasion, and it freaked everybody out because they thought it was really happening. It was basically a hoax. It was a huge troll. But it was super effective, and it's actually something that people remember to this day. So
yeah, it was such a big deal that it's referenced in movies that are set during that time period. Where I can't remember the scene, the movie that the scene is from, but there's one that comes to mind where this couple is out on a date and they turn on the radio and the broadcast is playing and the guy like just bolts out of the car and runs off because he hears that aliens have invaded, and like that kind of panic happened all over. So but it was such a widespread thing, and it was so funny that and so much of an impact on society at that moment that yeah, it's referenced in other stories now that are set in that time period.
Yeah, so I mean, in closing, I guess, because we should get to the rest of these stories. Max, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, just one very quick thing, because you brought up something in respect to the resources that they put forward to take this piece of armor out of the game. I can't believe how fast they were able to do this. What, in less than 2 weeks since the game's release? I can't believe that they're able to do that so quickly without being able to fix such very, very simple things with Destiny 2. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe being able to select the fucking strikes, you know, the individual strikes instead of having to go through a playlist and having to drop, and people are dropping out all the goddamn time because they want to do a particular strike. Or how about the fact that, you know, that you can't go beyond 260. It's almost impossible to get beyond 265 unless you go and do the fucking raid, and you have to go online and you have to go to the Destiny tracker to get people to come on, and then they all suck. It's a fucking miracle. Anyways.
No, that sounds, damn it. Those things sound really hard, Max.
First world problem.
But if you remove the Kekistani, what appears to be a Kekistani flip symbol from a piece of armor, and then you go online and you proudly proclaim that you did it because you don't support white supremacy or whatever the fuck they think that this is, it's actually a lot easier to get people to like you, I guess, to do that than it is to like actually improve the game that people fucking paid for.
Hey, Bungie, when Anthem comes out in the next few months, you guys are going to get anus raped.
Yes.
Honestly. Because that game looks like it's fucking kick-ass. It looks like everything that Destiny should have been back in 2014, okay? So get your act together and put your resources towards something that matters, okay? God, remember Halo Reach? Did you ever play Halo Reach, Brian?
No.
Guys, anybody who's ever played Halo Reach, you know what I'm talking about. The customization in that game was fucking amazing. It actually meant something if you got something like inclement weather armor effects for your helmet, or you got like that grenadier chest piece. That was a big deal. And they can't even seem to get the most bare minimum aspect of trying to, you know, get your customization right, your aesthetics for your character. Fucking single-use shaders? Are you kidding? You can tell how passionate I am.
No, I didn't play a lot of Halo. I didn't have I had the first Xbox, so I only had like the first 2 Halos, and that was it. But
I'm done.
I get it. And also on the other side of the coin, these folks, they are completely humorless. The people who report on this, what is up? They are so out of touch with the internet culture. It's actually the reason why you guys are going to keep losing at everything, because you don't understand internet culture, and it's a shame because these people are moving on without you. So anyway, moving on to the next story. You're sad. All right. Evergreen State College settles with Brett Weinstein. It's Weinstein. Pretty sure it's Weinstein. Brett Weinstein, the widely known Evergreen State biology professor who protested changes to Evergreen's day of absence, filed a tort claim against Evergreen State College. Weinstein and his wife filed a $3.85 million claim against Evergreen after it had permitted, cultivated, and perpetuated a racially hostile and retaliatory work environment. In their claim, they stated that, quote, through a series of decisions made at the highest levels, including to officially support a day of racial segregation, the college has refused to protect its employees from repeated provocative and corrosive verbal and written hostility based on race, as well as threats of physical violence, end quote. Brett Weinstein faced enormous backlash from students as well as other faculty for fighting against Evergreen's change to the day of absence. In previous years, the day of absence was a day in which non-white faculty and students did not go to campus in order to raise awareness about the contributions of minorities and spark a conversation about racial issues at Evergreen. This past school year, faculty at Evergreen made changes and strongly implied that white students and faculty would not be welcome on campus and instead should attend an event at an off-campus location. After denouncing the change in format, Brett Weinstein showed up to campus and was met with verbal and physical harassment from students, many of whom were being directed by Evergreen faculty members. In the months following, he was faced with imminent threats to his safety and was told by campus police that they could not guarantee his safety if he showed up on campus. Because of these series of events, Brett Weinstein and his wife filed their tort claim. In the end, they settled with the school for only $500,000 only, compared to the $3.85 million that they had asked. John Carmichael, the chief of staff and secretary to Evergreen's board of trustees, said that, quote, this agreement is in the best interests of Evergreen. Years of expensive and time-consuming litigation would not help us achieve our mission, end quote. However, Carmichael also said that in making this agreement, the college admits no liability and rejects the allegations made in the tort claim.
Yeah, fuck you.
While Evergreen did not admit fault in the case of this specific claim, Evergreen's reputation has already been damaged because of the administration's shoddy handling of the entire situation surrounding Brett Weinstein and Evergreen's day of absence.
So apparently their mission is to make people with different racial backgrounds feel totally separated from each other and not get along?
It would seem to be that. By being inclusive, I guess. Yeah. I mean,
it strikes me that, like, because that's what this seems to be designed to achieve. So clearly, like, what they've done here, if it's any indication of their mission is to be as divisive as humanly possible and prevent wounds from past conflict from ever healing.
Yep.
that's all I can get out of their behavior. It doesn't seem like it's intended to. The idea of sparking a conversation, but the people that are trying to have the conversation aren't there, or the people that you're trying to have the conversation with can't be there. It's kind of dumb. And on top of it, it's, again, a divisive thing. And it just really strikes me as counterproductive the way they're doing this.
Bottom line, Evergreen, you messed up when you allowed your students to tell a Jewish man that he couldn't go somewhere on account of the way that he was born. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's your fault. And we can talk about, whether Brett Weinstein's particular politics might have had his own hand in creating the culture that we have now. But in respect to what he has gone through and the fact that he has become an advocate for free speech, good on you, man. Congratulations.
I agree. I mean, I'm hoping that there's a shift happening, but I can't help that but to point out that he did kind of help create this monster, and he's sort of dealing with the outcome of that. And I hope that he learns something from that experience, because that's just the truth of it. I mean, this is a beast that he made. So even though his views were less extreme, I get that must be what the difference is. He did contribute to this. He was a part of that. Even though he was a biology professor and he had he has some background with evolutionary biology. If you watch, there was a very long Joe Rogan podcast that I watched with Brett Weinstein and Jordan B. Peterson and Joe Rogan. It was mostly just Weinstein and Peterson talking. And I know if you watch that, you'll see that Weinstein's personal politics are still very much, in many ways, they're still on the progressive side. And when I say progressive, I don't mean really progressive. I mean he puts people into, groups according to the progressive stack. He believes in the systems of oppression. He believes in all these things. He just thinks that what's going on in Evergreen College has gone a little too far. It's like those people that say, oh, I'm a feminist, but I don't like the new third wave feminism. I'm a bigger fan of the second wave feminism or whatever. I believe that's good enough. And this is the same. He does the same thing. So again, that doesn't mean that I don't think that he deserves justice. That doesn't mean that I'm not glad that, he's starting to maybe see the fallout of that. But there are a couple things that are important to point out. One is, his politics haven't shifted that much. He just doesn't consider himself as extreme. And secondly, he didn't seem to take an issue with any of this stuff until it started to affect him personally. And I think that's also something that's worth pointing out. In the meantime, the college obviously the college as an institution bears much more of the blame. And I'm not trying to make a case for the college, because they're obviously the bigger part of the problem, as in fact most of academia is.
Now, I would also point out it's a positive sign, at least, that he didn't, a lot of people that are of the progressive stack wielding social justice warrior end of the political spectrum, when they become the target of their own politics, they turn into these self-flagellating, self-sacrificing ninnies. And he didn't go that route. And I think it's the fact that he not only didn't go that route, but that he actually stood up and opposed what was happening to him. It may not necessarily be, great as in terms of, a big change from him or a sudden epiphany or realization. But at the very least, it's a sign that in society you can do that. You can, turn around and say, no, I won't put up with this, and fight back, and at least on a small level win. Even though the college doesn't admit guilt, they still had to shell out quite a bit of money there. More money than I'll probably ever see in my life. So, there is that. He didn't go the I'm a terrible person, shame on me for existing, you're right, I shouldn't be here route. he actually did something about it.
And he seems like, including everything that you said and about his appearance on Rogan, at least he seems very open to hearing opposing points of view and putting forward a thought-out argument, even though you and I can disagree with him.
Yeah.
So I think, and he's also buddy-buddy with Jordan Peterson, it seems, right now. So he seems to be on his way to, quote, I guess you can say, for lack of a better term, red-pilling himself. But yeah, I for those reasons, I sort of have to be more on the good side of things and more optimistic.
I'm not necessarily being pessimistic, but I guess this reminds me of, and again, this isn't like I agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm glad that he's open to conversations. I'm glad that he's willing to discuss these things with Jordan Peterson and anybody else. It would seem that this experience essentially pushed him on this journey, right? This experience. And I'm reminded, in a way, of Lacey Green and what happened with her when she started dating Chris Ray Gun. And while it's a little, I'm feeling it's a mixed bag for me, because on the one hand, I'm glad that Lacey Green has decided to, start to talk to people. Although I don't know if she's done anything lately, because I don't subscribe to her. I'm glad that she's open to talking to people and trying to hash out the stuff that's going on with anti-feminists and what they're saying, and with other people who essentially criticize feminism for whatever reason, and her own personal views, and he's going on that journey. But having said that, I don't give her as much praise as others do, because there are other things that she has not done, which I think that Jordan Peterson, and I'm just using him as an example, but I believe that before you can start on a journey intellectually and philosophically, where you have conversations with people who you disagree with, who have criticized you in the past, whatever, who have valid or invalid criticisms, that you're willing to take a step outside of your ideology and really examine it for what's working and what's not, and allow that stuff to be, the chips to fall wherever they may, once you have gone through that process. I think that it's you can't really start it unless you're willing to look at the stuff that you have done before that and actually look at how much of that is wrong. Like, you can't for example, in Lacey Green's case, she has essentially remember when Sargon apologized to her for what his fans did, okay? And it wasn't even that bad, but Sargon felt the need to do it anyway, so he did. Now, I know that Sargon was extending an olive branch, and I don't fault him for that, even though I wouldn't have done it myself. The reason why I wouldn't have done it myself is because I don't feel that I'm responsible for what our fans do. That was a thing that was happening with Bering and Christy Winters, right? Where he's got 400,000 subs, and they're individual free agents to do whatever they want, and maybe some of them go to Christy Winters and they call her mean names, or they criticize her, or they disagree with her and she calls it harassment, and she insists that this is Bering's responsibility. It's the same thing with Sargon and Lacey. Now, that I didn't mind that he did it, because I get it, but at the same time, even though Lacey put forward a tearful acceptance of his apology, she never once went and looked at the stuff that she's done to find out what she could do, which is things like she called all Republicans rape apologists. All of them. That's half of the population of the United States, okay? That's a terrible thing to accuse them of. She has said... What was it else? Oh, she said, fuck you, white America. And when she went on Dave Rubin, and he mentioned that to her, he asked her if she stood by that. She had a chance right there to say, you know what, I was emotional at that time, and I was upset about the result of the election. That's understandable, because I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But no, she said, I stand by that. So that hasn't changed. So there's things that when I see that, I think to myself, I appreciate that you're going on this journey, you're trying to figure out the truth, but there are things that you haven't dealt with that you've done that I think you should deal with, because I can't take you seriously if you don't. And with Brett Weinstein, I get a little bit of that. It's not to the same extent, but I get a little bit of that, because I'm not seeing him say, this progressive politics stuff, I did have a part to play in some capacity. And I think that I'm going to have to really go and think about this stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that That's not the same as him essentially throwing out his ideology, but at least looking at the stuff that is, you know, you can't say, well, the students have become more extreme than I would have believed, if you don't think that you didn't contribute to that in any way. Like, they didn't come to the school with those beliefs, you know, that was put in them by you or your colleagues and other faculty. So you have to, like, at some point, you got to take personal responsibility. That's what's missing. The personal responsibility is what is missing, and that's the bit that that puts me on the less, you know, like slightly, let's say cautiously optimistic, where I'd like to see the change, but I'm not seeing that personal responsibility, that owning up to what you had done or what your part to play was in creating this monster. And instead, I'm just seeing a lawsuit, and it's like, well, I'm going to get $3.8 something million because I feel slighted, and oh, I only got 500,000, boo-hoo. But, you know, like, if we're talking about fixing problems, then I think I'm calling for some integrity here. So
never hold your breath on something like that, because there's, especially in the United States, there's something that is it's not just entirely specific to here, but it's fairly specific to here, where there are certain areas for which people are accustomed to not having to take personal responsibility. And one of them is their past political opinions. And, you know, on the Lacey Green front, that goes double because she's a girl. And, you know, I'm sure that there's people going to be saying, oh, you're just being tough on her because she's a girl. No, I'm a girl. I know this because I have not been held to the same standard as guys have in terms of past fuck-ups, and I know it. And that's something that, well, the best way to put it is this. You know, I've talked about people asking me, you know, have you always been a woman? Have you always been a woman? And, you know, and that's one of the ways they ask it. You know, did you ever used to be a guy? Have you always been a woman? Well, no, I haven't always been a woman. I used to be a little girl, and then I grew up. And it took me a longer time than it should have. And that's part of the problem. Some girls grow up to be women. Some girls get older all of their lives, and they get to the age of Hillary Clinton, and they're still children. Or they're still very much like the responsibility level of a teenage boy. And because of that, you have this situation where you're not expected by the people around you to take personal responsibility for your past behavior, for self-examination, for your own decision-making, and so on, to train you to consistently do that and to have an inclination to do it. If you don't have that inclination on your own, or if you're not led to that inclination through observation, if somebody doesn't yell at you for not having that inclination, or life doesn't kick your ass because you don't have that inclination, you don't develop it. And that's just the way it is. And in the United States, we have such a plethora of safety nets for people, both in terms of wealth and social safety nets, that I think we grow up with a much less harsh school of hard knocks for a lot of people in a lot of ways than people in some other countries in terms of taking personal responsibility. And it's very noticeable. The first place I really noticed it was when I went to college. And some of the international students just seemed at the same age as the rest of us. They seemed as mature as my parents. It was a very stark difference. And it was because where they grew up, their society, not just their environment, but their society, had a much more harsh set of rules that dealt with personal accountability. And so they were quicker to, when it was called for, when it was right for them to do it, they were quicker to apologize. They were quicker to offer to fix something that they had screwed up. They were quicker to offer to chip in if they were in a group of people that wanted to go do something that cost money, even if they had less money to do it. They were quicker to offer to pitch in and work. They were quicker to offer to help if somebody was down on their luck, you know. So, and this was clear back, in the early 90s, when I was 18, 19 years old, figuring this out, and I felt kind of embarrassed for being that different from them. And I think a lot of people don't figure that out. But I think what we found with our divisiveness in the United States, what we're dealing with in terms of people having these experiences where there's an obvious lesson in the experience and they don't pick it up, and they go through this agonizing journey from blue pill to red pill, if they ever get to red pill. It's partly because it's alien for Americans to take that degree of personal responsibility for being wrong in their politics that quickly. And it's almost like there needs to be another, like we talk about red pill, we talk about blue pill, and we talk about purple pill being that sort of space in between. It's like there needs to be another step between the purple pill and the blue pill, like an indigo pill that you get stuck on before you start through the purple journey. And it seems to me that both of the people under discussion are in that indigo stage, and a lot of people never get out of it. So I'm not holding my breath that they will. I'm not saying there's no hope that they will, but I don't hold my breath on stuff like that. Never hold your breath on something like that, because you never know, especially with an American, because we're spoiled.
Right.
And it's not necessarily all bad that we're spoiled. That's a sign of plenty, basically.
Yeah.
There are consequences for it.
Right. I don't really have really an expectation that there'd be a great deal of humility that would come out of this and any of that. But, at the end of the day, I don't really care that much. It really comes down to what your actions are. So, if Weinstein takes up the, he's doing the stuff that he's doing, and I admire that, and he's having the conversations, and he's going to challenge his beliefs, and, maybe he'll also challenge ours. I'm open to that too. Then I think that's all great. I want to read some people who made comments. Some of them said stuff specifically to what I said. Sarah Jessica Farter says, she only made a fucking tweet. I guess is referencing Lacey Green. If folk can't handle reading a tweet that they don't like, they can fuck off. Well, thing is, the point about it is to... The reason why people were responding to the tweet isn't because it offended them or triggered them or they couldn't handle it. When Lacey insulted white America on her, when she lost, when her woman lost the election, or when she made her videos on Brawless, where she basically called all Republicans rape Republicans, which essentially is saying they're all rape apologists because reasons. People are specifically talking about that because Lacey viewed herself at the time as a pillar of tolerance and love and equality and all this other stuff. And this is counter to that. It's basically comes from a lack of how do I put this? A lack of compassion for your opponents. And the fact is, you cannot claim to be compassionate if you aren't compassionate universally, which she isn't. It also shows that if you switch things around according to her logic, then if you change some elements in her statements, they become bigoted statements. So it's sort of like, if you were to say, fuck you, white America, if I made a tweet saying fuck you, black America, or if a white guy did, or whatever, then that wouldn't go over very well, right? That would be something that she would have a problem with. This isn't really because people are upset, but they're basically just pointing out that what she's doing or what she did is hypocritical and it's hateful. I mean, it's angry and it's hateful. And if you claim to not be a hateful person, then these are not the things that you do. It just shows that you're a hypocrite. So when people point it out, that's what they point out. And maybe when Dave Rubin asked her if she still stood by that, he wanted to know if her position on things had changed at all as a result of essentially reaching out and dating Chris Ray Gun and all this stuff. It was basically like, okay, so now that you have, started this journey and all the people that you supposedly loved you, well, not all of them, but a bunch of them turned on her, like the feminists and stuff, has your positions shifted on anything? Like, do you think that maybe you were a bit harsh when you said that? And she didn't. She said, no, I don't take it back at all. So she could have just been doubling down, which SJWs always do. But I think that it's worth pointing out because it does say something to her character. This is what is worth pointing out. As far as, okay, so that's the reason why I said that. I mean, you guys could feel free to add on to that if you want to, but that's where I was coming from.
There is something to point out that's more recent than that. And I mean, because like I hate to see people get upset about Lacey not being considered fully red-pilled. Okay, she's not a football. She's a person, and people make mistakes, and they can be wrong. You know, like I can be wrong about things. Okay, any of us can be wrong about things. And one of the clues as to where she stands was her reaction to Betsy DeVos. She's one of the people that got very upset about Betsy DeVos's statement. And that kind of tells you she wasn't paying attention to both sides of that issue. She didn't even hear what Betsy actually said. Her tweets about that were all talking points, and I didn't see her respond to any of the counter arguments people gave her for those. Now, I don't know, I don't watch your videos, but so she might have said something different on YouTube, but she's definitely not red-pilled, because somebody who was red-pilled would at least have looked at the articles that DeVos referenced, the cases that DeVos referenced, and realized that, yes, there is a problem. The problem affects both types of victims, you know, victims of actual misconduct and victims of false accusations, which aren't labeled misconduct but should be. And that's, you know, that to me, that tells me she's not red-pilled. It tells me that she's wanting people to see her as someone who is open-minded. But that's why I keep saying, you know, don't hold your breath. And it's why I mentioned that indigo pill thought. It's the only way I can think of off the top of my head to express it. She hasn't quite started the journey yet. She's you know, steps outside the house, but she's nowhere near the big SUV that's going to take her down the road from blue pill to red pill. Hadn't happened yet. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. It's not about being angry at her. It's about being realistic.
Other things, so I got two more comments, and there's some other ones that are related to this. John Chalkley said, "Gotta be honest, Brian, I don't think you understood Brett's position at all." And Evildoer said, "I don't think Weinstein is half as bad as you're saying. I've watched all of his interviews, and he seems to have always been for equal opportunity, for example."
No, he's not that bad.
No, I don't. I mean, look, I'm open to that being the case. I'm just going by what I've seen in the first. I remember the very first interview I saw him on. What was the first place he appeared after this whole thing broke out?
Carlson.
Was it Tucker Carlson? Yeah, I think it was on that. And at that time, I was listening to him, and I got the impression that he was very much... He's actually admittedly a progressive. Now, he may not be as far out there, which is what I said. He may not be as far out there as like the kind of students that are being produced, the kind of stuff that we see. He's not a Melissa Click, for example. You know, but I mean, he's not like Bike Lock guy. But so I'm not saying that. But I question whether or not he did contribute to this climate in some way. And maybe his positions have actually shifted, even, you know, because some people said that he's actually talked about this stuff before he was personally affected by it. And that may be true, and I'm open to that as a possibility. So I don't pretend to know exactly where Weinstein is at. I'm just going by what I've seen in the interviews that I've seen. So take that for what it is.
Be vigilant for all the reasons that Hannah and Brian listed, but going forward, do your best to not hold this stuff over their head. Otherwise, you're risking just pushing them away and not, you know, having them become open. Definitely,
I'm like, you know, let them, you know, find their own way. I'm open to like let Lacey Green. This is her journey. Same thing with Brett. You know, we'll see. And I hope that this continues these conversations continue. So that's basically what it's going to take. All right. So I'm going to go on to the next story. The road to ruin. Cambridge PhD student Matthew Barron has been cleared of assault charges after his then fiancée, Sophia Cook, claimed that he punched her in the arm and face, as well as smashed her car radio and smartphone. The incident occurred during an argument in which Cook revealed that she had cheated on Barron during a trip to Ecuador. During the trial, Cook maintained that Barron had assaulted her and damaged her property. Barron did admit to shaming her car radio and smartphone, but denied laying hands on Cook. I'm guessing that shaming is like he damaged it. Smashed, not shamed. That would be weird. Shame on you, radio and smartphone. Barron told the court that the claims of assault were revenge for him calling off the wedding plans due to Cook's infidelity. Derp. Barron said that Cook wanted to ruin him, stating that she told him, quote, "If you tell anyone that I've cheated on you, I will ruin you. I will tell everyone that you have been a violent monster." In the end, the court decided to side with Barron, calling Cook's story inconsistent and not credible. However, Barron was convicted of criminal damage and was handed a conditional discharge of 12 months, as well as being ordered to pay £620 in court costs, including £300 in compensation. Cook will not face any criminal charges. So, anybody have any thoughts on that story?
Well, hell, Cook's the abuser in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, from the start, too, the only reason to tell somebody you cheated on them, if you haven't put them at risk for a disease and you're not leaving them for somebody that other people are going to tell them you cheated with, the only reason to inflict that information on them is for your own interests. To make yourself feel better, to beg forgiveness, or to hurt them. And no matter what your goal is, the last bit is going to be the main result. And, you know, unless you have for their own physical health as a legitimate reason to tell the person, it's abusive to tell somebody that you cheated on them. It just is. And so she started the whole thing right there by saying it. And then threatening him with it like that. And what did she expect that this guy was going to, you know, going to do? I mean, did she expect that he was just going to take it and walk away? You know, maybe some people do that. Maybe some people put up with basically being kicked in the balls like that. But a lot of people become very angry when they get told something like that all of a sudden. It was totally inappropriate for him to destroy her property.
Sarah
Sarah
Jessica Farter, real quick. She says, I'd rather that my partner told me that they cheated on me. I'd want to know. I mean, I'd rather they don't cheat at all. I don't know.
I'd rather they don't cheat at all.
But if they do, and they tell you about it, you have to wonder, like, what is the goal?
Why did you tell me this?
Yeah.
You know, as far as, like, I'm the kind of person that would rip off the scab too, but it would still, the only reason to tell me would be to hurt me, unless I had a risk that I had to know about. And I've watched people that I love and care about find that information out live. And it's very hard to control your temper when you see somebody go through that. Just seeing somebody that you're protective of going through that. And so I can understand why it might be hard for somebody who is in the midst of it to control his temper. When you're hurt, your first self-defense against that pain, when you're hurt that way, is to get angry. And it's just an absolutely stupid, rotten, shitty thing to do all around. The act of cheating itself, it's abusive. It's a betrayal. A betrayal is abusive. If you're done being with somebody, and you're going to be with somebody else,
just in the relationship.
In the relationship first.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then don't be with the other person. It's not that hard. If you're going to be monogamous, be monogamous. If you're not going to be monogamous, be open about it. Be honest. That's it. But no, I honestly, out of all of this, you know, it's one of the few times it's understandable to completely lose your shit is when somebody whose loyalty you're led to believe you can trust, the person that you are led to believe is the one you can trust the most in the world, it betrays you like that. Not that it's okay to be violent under that circumstance.
No.
Just that it's understandable. Understanding and approval are not the same thing for anyone listening for something to cherry pick. And so it's not wrong that he was convicted of criminal damage because he did it, but it's very wrong that she's not facing any charges. She filed a false charge, and she was abusive too. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's if they're gonna go after him for what, destroying a car radio?
Yeah, and a cell phone
and a smartphone that he could replace. Then they ought to go after her for that too.
That actually brings you actually kind of answered it in your statement, but someone was saying, you know, why wouldn't you want to know? And I guess my question would be, maybe there's something to think about. Okay, and Hannah basically answered it, but I'm just putting it out there for everybody else that's here, like Max and stuff. If your partner goes on a trip, because she went on a trip, or whatever, if she's cheating on you, if she cheats on you, or if he cheats on you, as the case may be, and they come back and they tell you they did it, is that better or worse than if you find out later through someone else, in some other means, like either on your own or through a third party, or maybe through the person that they're cheating with?
Well, there's another thing. Finding out that somebody's cheated would ruin every memory that comes out of the relationship. Everything. Every happy moment. And that would include memories of things that were activities with groups of people, your family, your other friends and everything, where your ex was part of that. For a long time, if not for your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I've had that happen with minor things. You know, had that happen with favorite entertainers. The most recent one, okay, it was only a handful of my schoolmates, but I was bullied as viciously as Carrie from Stephen King's novel Carrie. Mm-hmm. And it was some of the stuff that was in that book, some of the same things, or things that were eerily similar, were done to me.
Did you have when I read that, this on your head?
Did I have what?
Did you have pig's blood poured on your head?
No, that was one that didn't quite get there. But I had numerous other things that I'm like, holy shit, you know, this guy's reaching into my head. And that was one of three pieces of works of entertainment that have meant a lot to me since the first time I experienced them, because they involved the repercussions of rage. And like when I was growing up, it was the Incredible Hulk. The Hulk was something that, you know, was when my dad sort of got me hooked on, because I always had a struggle with my temper. And then there was the other two, or both Stephen King creations. There was Carrie and there was Firestarter. And the struggles to control the temper in order to control the fire in Firestarter really hit home. And then the other day he comes out and demonstrates a complete inability to deal with humor that comes from the wrong side of the political fence. And I was disgusted. I'm like, this is not the person that wrote the wisdom that I gleaned from those books, the observations that I was able to make from those books that touched on my battle with my temper. And it's very frustrating, right? And that's minor. but it actually kept me awake when I was the only chance I got to sleep in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
And that's not even like I have no connection directly whatsoever with this author, okay? There's nothing. You know, just that I've read his books and happen to be touched by this. Imagine. That's a minor thing. Imagine the impact something as big as that degree of intimacy that you have with the person. This is a fiance. This isn't just a girlfriend, right? They were going to get married. This was somebody that this guy planned on being with for the rest of his life. And this is the most trusted person in his life did this to him.
Right.
Wanting to know that just for the sake of wanting to know is dangerous.
Well, then it begs the question, like, you know, why did she tell him? I wonder, because if after telling him he damaged her property out of frustration, I wonder if it didn't happen because she was angry at him for some reason.
That happens.
Like, they got into a fight, right? And then she said, you know what? You know, I sucked, 50 dicks on my way to the parking lot just a little while ago, or whatever it is. 36 dicks. And just want to get the number right. But, you do that to throw that in the face of the other person. And I know that when, when women argue, they can get, when they want to insult a guy, they know where to hit them, where it's like does the most damage. So it could have been a fight that they got into, and then she said, I did this thing, and then he responded by annulling the marriage, which of course made her angrier, and then she escalated and saying, well, I'm going to tell people that you beat me, which is how we got to this point. So clearly, there was something wrong with this woman from the beginning, and because a person that would do that is not somebody you want to be with, and unfortunately, the person that's going to suffer the most in the long run is this guy's future relationships are going to be tainted by this relationship, which he was apparently ready to tie the knot with this person. So this was probably destroyed his trust in women for a while, and he's going to need a lot of time to heal, and it's going to make it very difficult for him to trust, again, especially if he meets another girl. She could be perfect, right, in every way, and if she says, oh, I want to go on a trip somewhere, he's probably going to be like, I don't want you to go, because he's not going to know if this person could just fuck him over again. I think it's just going to be something he's going to have to carry. But worse than that is every other man that this woman gets involved with in the future, and probably every man that she's been involved with before. So there's definitely some toxicity here that needs to be addressed on her part, and it's left a mark on this guy. And maybe this guy's got problems too, because he was destroying property and stuff, so he probably has some anger issues that he has to work out. But then again, these are kind of extreme circumstances, so at least I think so. If you have a fiance and she cheats on you, yeah, that's something that I don't even have experience with, so I couldn't tell you how I'd feel about it.
Well, honestly, if your fiance is female and she cheats on you and you want to hit back, the best way to do it is to not demonstrate in the least that you've been affected at all.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. It's okay. Well, it was nice knowing you, and walk away.
That's how you do it. You act like you don't care, and that actually burns their ass.
That would get, well, and women's egos are so, this is something that happened with the ex. She was absolutely livid. She left. She went off with another guy. She was gonna, she's still married to him, but she was absolutely livid when my husband and I got together. Even though she was done, she was out of the relationship, she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. She didn't want him to not want her anymore. And it was it's a huge hit to the female ego if a guy is able to get over her. And it's like the deepest hit the hardest hit you could deliver is to not be hurt, to not or to look like you're not hurt. Okay, well, it was nice knowing you. Bye. And that's it. And if she can't tell that you're hurt, and she doesn't feel like you're devastated that it's over, that'll cut her deeper than anything you could do, anything else you could do.
Yep.
Even if you cheated on her with another woman, you couldn't cut her that deep.
Yep. Okay, so let's go on to the next story.
Brian,
Yeah?
before we start this story, can I just do one quick thing, please?
Yes? What? What was that?
Girls' theme song. Here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, so yeah, Powerpuff Girls. When this was on Cartoon Network back in the day, it was actually a really great show. I actually liked Powerpuff Girls quite a lot. And then they rebooted it. And, yeah, it didn't really... Something about it just didn't talk to me very well. But looks like they've been trying new ways to make the show appealing. I don't know how popular it is right now. It just didn't seem to be my cup of tea anymore. However, we have an article here for the latest thing that they tried to change. So, Powerpuff's newest fluff. The original Powerpuff Girls was a staple of the late 1990s era of Cartoon Network cartoons. Many fans were thrilled when it was announced that the show would be coming back in the form of a reboot in 2016. Those same fans were much less thrilled when the new show featured poor quality writing, the overuse of stale memes, and twerking.
What?
Apparently twerking. Yes. Meanwhile, in current year, the show is still making waves by introducing a new fourth girl to the roster. Blistina, also known as Bliss, made her debut in the last episode. While similar in appearance to the other girls, Bliss differs somewhat significantly. Her darker skin has led many to consider that she is the first black Powerpuff Girl, or at least a Powerpuff Girl of color. She also has electric blue hair. Your hair is blue. As well as longer legs and more pronounced hips. The explanation for that being that she is older than the other three girls. Many fans have criticized Bliss's appearance, stating that she seems closer to poor quality fan art rather than an official character. I've actually seen in comments section under this clips you can find on YouTube about Bliss that people say, "This is my OC, please do not steal." When the Bliss's departure at the end of the latest episode is unknown at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. With the Bliss's departure at the end of this latest episode, it is unknown at this time if she will make any more appearances in future episodes. So, TVLine.com has actually titled an article, the one that I used as the main source, as Fourth Powerpuff Girl Revealed, Meet Townsville's First Black Crime Fighter. But if you watch the clips, there is actually no evidence to suggest that she is black, other than the fact that her skin is darker. But other than that, there really isn't anything to go on. She could simply be a girl with a tan. She could be from anywhere else, but for some reason they insist that she's black.
She's Latinx, Brian.
She could be Latinx. She could be.
It's a really good thing they didn't name her Lilith.
She could be one of those, you know, like in Japan, they have those girls that get tans and they do like the colored light hair. I don't even know what it is. It's like a thing they do in Japan where they like bronze themselves and they get really dark. It's actually like a fashion thing. She could be doing that. She's a teenager, or at least almost a teenager. She seems to she's older than the other girls, so I think she might be a teenager. I don't know.
The thing that I'm getting from the article here, that one paragraph, initially thought to be Bubbles' imaginary friend, Bliss was later revealed to be an earlier version of Professor Utonium's perfect little girl experiment, though she proved considerably less stable than he intended. Following a tantrum-induced explosion, he thought she was lost to him forever until now. So basically she had a tantrum and disappeared, which means maybe she ran off. Had a tantrum and ran off. She was the first perfect little girl, and she turned out to be less perfect than he expected.
Mm-hmm.
It is the Lilith myth. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lilith myth, the before Eve, but that's what they've basically done here. And of course, the Lilith myth also includes Lilith becoming a demon in to some aspects of the story, which kind of makes it weird if she's the only black character on the show. And I don't think the writers thought of that when they were creating this. But it'd be interesting if oh yeah, and the Anano 3. You mean he accidentally added Chemical X twice?
Well, actually,
that's
was
kind of a flaw too.
No, what actually? Because I watched the clip. It was Chemical W.
Oh
that,
dear
that
God.
went in W as in woke. But actually, because W comes before X, and apparently he did it like several other times before that. Chemicals A through U, or V, A through V. That's what they did when they were doing the episode about her origin. So yeah, Chemical W.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But if if SJWs get a hold of the idea that she's the Lilith myth in Powerpuff Girl writing, and then they carry it forward to the demon end of it, and then they go, "He made the black girl a demon," we're going to see rage.
Yeah, we are. Well, I don't know. I mean, they actually. I don't want to get into it too much, but.
Unless they decide they like demons.
When I was doing my research by watching clips on YouTube, as I wanted to know more about this backstory and stuff, this is how I learned that this Powerpuff Girl is not. There is nothing that explicitly says that she's black. There's nothing. The voice actress, I don't even think is black. Like I'm not really sure, but I don't think she is. So there's no evidence to suggest that at all, like other than her skin is darker colored, but that doesn't say anything. Again, it doesn't say anything. I mean, it's a woman made in a lab anyway. Does she even have a race? So, or it's a girl made in a lab. But also, there is a point where he actually tricks her and merges. I think he like steals her body or something and. Use it to make himself more powerful or whatever. So there is actually they actually use him in the story as the main antagonist that uses and actually has been like manipulating her from the beginning. So, spoiler alert.
That's hilarious.
To put himself in a position to essentially steal the Powerpuff Girl's power from the most powerful one. And also, Bliss has just crazy power. She doesn't actually make any sense. She's very... Other than the fact that she has these temper tantrums, she's pretty Mary Sue-ish. She just does whatever she needs to do. As opposed to the other girls that they're strong and they fly and I think they have eye lasers from their gigantic eyes. So, but yeah, Bliss is all over the place.
Yeah, that's funny
possessed,
though, because
she was possessed by him. That's what happened.
It's like they somebody read the some summary of one of the Lilith myths. And decided, how can I incorporate this into the Powerpuff Girls as innocently as possible?
Right. For those guys who are writing about, I see people in the comment section. I think him has to be spelled in all caps, H-I-M. That's how you have to say it. I don't think you can do any lowercase letters in that. It's just him, all caps.
No, it's just the first letter is capitalized. I remember that from before.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, just the first letter.
Well, there you go. I don't know if Max or Mike have any comments on it, but I thought I would this was something I wanted to just clarify about and just sort of like, because I know people were talking about this new Powerpuff Girl for a little bit, so I figured we should chime in briefly. No? Nobody?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure because my mute button is still messing up. I just want to point out one quick thing that I never realized until just now. Powerpuff Girls. It's a good example of a TV show that's about 20 years old, where there is a significant number of young dudes that watched it. So,
yeah.
And I can guarantee you, like, I watched the Powerpuff Girls when I was young. I probably haven't watched a single episode in about over a decade. But I remember enjoying the show quite a lot, and it had a bunch of strong females that kicked ass. So if you want to ask guys like me or Brian, people that are sort of into that nerd culture.
On top of that, they were not feminists. Because there was actually an episode of the Powerpuff Girls that has a feminist villain in it, and you should totally watch it if you don't know about it. And
you ever see that?
What?
You ever see that clip where it's like a Mojo Jojo's like, being oppressed.
Yeah, that was yep, and all the animal activists come out and to protect him. Yeah, there were definitely Gennady Tchaikovsky, who was the director of that original show from the what was it, late 90s. He was not a big fan of social justice warriors. Well, at least he reflected it in his show, at least the extremists. So he wasn't, because the feminist episode is really good. And the feminist uses her feminism to get away with crime, basically. She's just like, but I'm a woman, and they had to let her go. And they did for a while, and they realized they were getting tricked. And then the I'm being oppressed episode that Mojo Jojo was in. So I think that was good stuff. Because the girls didn't need those things. They were strong without it. So I dug that. Now, in this reboot, I understand that there was like a MRA villain. I remember them talking about that in this episode. He was like a lumberjack guy with a beard, and it was this weird stereotype of a manly man. It was in an episode of this new reboot, but I didn't watch it, so I don't know if the same people are involved. I never looked into it. I know that I don't like the animation as much, and I don't know. It just doesn't seem as funny. It's kind of it's just kind of lame. So. But you know what? As much as I liked the Powerpuff Girls, I actually liked Dexter's Lab more. That had some crazier shit in it, and Samurai Jack, of course, and the Clone Wars. But anyway, so let's. If there's no other comments, we should move on to the next. We should move on to the last.
One quick question: sure. Does the reboot have the original theme song?
I don't know. Oh. I just watched. I just watched some clips. Maybe there was and then this episode ended with all the Powerpuff Girls merging to become like a giant Powerpuff Girl Zord thing that like a Spectre Man giant to fight him, and they did all these anime tropes, and it was actually really kind of cringy. I was not impressed, but it's just me.
That's too bad.
Anyway,
the only thing I can say about the Powerpuff Girls is the show made it so that anytime I hear the term reboot associated with a show that I used to love when it was on and any episodes were new, I break out in a cold sweat and have nightmares. That's it. Oh, and also regarding Dexter's Laboratory. Omelette du fromage!
Omelette du fromage. By the way, if I ever get the chance, Hannah, I'm just going to whisper Star Trek 2009 in your ear.
No!
So, let's go on to the final story. So here we go. Trash Override Network review. ZDNet has published a review of Zoe Quinn's book, Crash Override, which is about Gamergate and online hate. The first part of Quinn's book is about her background and how her abusive boyfriend conjured the angry mob known as Gamergate, because he has necromancy powers or something, that rapidly assembled and arrayed itself against her and sent countless death and rape threats, and how this led to her hiding out on friends' sofas, afraid to continue work on the games that she was developing. She also talked about being further victimized by a court system in which a judge told her to go offline and find another career. Maybe he's trying to look out for you, Zoe. The author of the review notes that while Quinn wrote about her interactions with police and courts, she doesn't appear to have sought advice for dealing with cases of domestic violence. According to the article, the rest of the book is about her activist efforts. Quinn found that the instruction to never feed the trolls was wrong, and that this advice only worked when all trolls wanted was to shock people. Now, however, she claims you must effectively disappear from your own life. Quinn created Crash Override Network, a group of volunteers that cultivated contacts with platforms to enable speedy escalation of complaints and collected evidence of threats to counter the trolls of Gamergate. As cited by ZDNet, Quinn claims none of this was enough because platforms were not keen on collaborating and that the tech world's companies are soiled. The following are the opinions of Stapler. This is the person who wrote this piece for us. I don't usually inject much of my own opinion into write-ups, but this one, about Quinn's personal anecdotes of being victimized by Gamergate, grind up like nails against a chalkboard of my own experience. I wonder if I would have even formed a friendship with my now husband if it wasn't for working on a game about the Honey Badgers being kicked out of the Calgary Comic-Con. We never actually finished it. Gamergate planted a seed of doubt when it came not only to gaming journalism, but to the media in general, and stressed to me how important it is to try and get to the truth of so-called hate movements. Whenever a group is written off and dehumanized, especially with simple moral characterizing buzzwords like misogynist or now more and more Nazi, it is a good time to reassess who is bullying who. To help with the reassignment of Gamergate, there is James Desborough's book that you can read for free if you have a subscription to Kindle. Link is in the show notes. Inside Gamergate, A Social History of Gamer Revolt. There is also there's a link to the book, Inside Gamergate, A Social History of Gamer Revolt, in the show notes. If you go to the show notes page, you can see it there. I did an interview with James Desborough, who you guys also might know as Grimachu, and you can get the book for free if you have a subscription to Kindle. Otherwise, it's very inexpensive. So that's basically the write-up for this article. So they reviewed it. Obviously, they said it would Quinn on everything. They questioned nothing. And they're pushing the book very hard. Does anybody have any thoughts?
I don't understand. Brian, I don't get it. There's so much evidence just that this woman, she's a woman, that she is exactly the perpetrator of the type of behavior that she seems to rail against. Whether you're talking about the stuff that happened back in Gamergate days, where she doxed people like Fine Young Capitalists and Mike Cernovich, or whether you're talking about the revelations that came out that she herself is a self-admitted rapist. Well, I mean, like, not publicly, but in the chat logs that were produced. And even going up to when she created Crash Override, I don't even know if that actually accomplished anything when she made that. But you can look at the chat logs that came out from Skype that Ian Miles Chong verified, where there were actual group members that were trying to sick the internet on people that they didn't like. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how this bitch can get so much attention when proof is literally in the fucking pudding. It's so obvious.
Because she suits a narrative that is being promoted. So everybody that is trying to promote that narrative is going to exploit her willingness to do anything to stay in the spotlight. And I mean, that's really what she's all about, because Gamergate didn't give a shit about Zoe Quinn. None of the Gamergate supporters that I knew cared one rat's ass about this woman's opinions, about what she was doing, about what she had to say, nothing. We didn't care about her game. We didn't care about any of it. The only reason anybody ever paid attention to her was because her behavior opened up the door to shady backroom, bullshit. And, that happened because she was an abusive girlfriend. And of course, then there was the shit she stirred on, God, I can't think of the Wizard Chan.
Oh yeah, Wizard Chan. That's right.
Yeah, Wizard Chan. And that was flat out cruel. That was beyond heartless. And it was to the degree of feeding on people's pain, heartless, and that's it. She's like the least relevant of the literally who's, and that's saying a lot because none of them are really of any significance.
No,
and none of they all act like the controversy happened because this group formed to pick on specifically them. When what they really did was, because this group existed and because this group was talking about a political issue and there was a consumer revolt, they put themselves on the other side of it so they could play victim in order to direct a spotlight at themselves. That's it. Mm-hmm. And it just, it kind of galls me that we have to continue to pay any attention to any of them at all at this point.
Well, basically what we're doing is we're just pushing back on their narratives because they're getting like these humongous platforms, and we'd rather not. And that's one of the reasons why we call it a literally who thing.
The whole thing with Crash Override, which by the way is what, named after a character in an edgy movie about hackers that isn't even realistic.
Are you talking about the movie Hackers? Is that what they're referencing?
Yes.
Oh my god, I only saw that once. What a dumb movie that was. I'm sorry, I did not like that movie.
It was embarrassing. And you didn't even have to really know anything for it to be an embarrassment.
If you want to immediately make me like question whether or not I want to watch any movie at all, cast Matthew Lillard in it in any role. And I will immediately be like, I don't think I want to see that. That's going to be my jumping off point right there.
That's where that came from. But the organization itself was created specifically for the purpose of ganging up on people and then using false accusations of harassment as a tool of harassment and silencing them with it. So like here we are now. It's 3 years after the event, and they're still obsessed with it because that's all they've got. And it's at this point, it disgusts me to realize it, but I gotta feel sorry for all of them because of that. Can you imagine if that was your career?
Oh, yeah, that's pretty sad. Observing Libertarian gave us $5, and he writes, Rule 3 of SJWs always lie, written by Vox Day, is SJWs always project. And Jazz E gave us $10 Australian. Thank you, Jazz. Thank you, Observing Libertarian. Little unrelated, but Clementine Ford was going after a Florida man for calling her a whore on Facebook the other day. Her followers were even contacting his employers from Australia. So, well, this is the kind of stuff that Zoe has done with the Crash Override Network. I mean, Ian Miles Chong, who was part of it, has written extensively about it. I'm actually waiting to see if he's going to do a review of her book. I don't know if he will or not, but he'd probably be the best guy to ask because he's been on both sides, right? So I'm wondering if he will. I should send him a message if he hasn't already. But then, the problem is if you want to review a book, you have to buy it. And, I bought that Hillary Clinton book, and I don't know. I wish I didn't. So.
It was entertaining.
No, it was, and I'm probably gonna read. I'll read from it in the future too, because. By the way, speaking of which, a couple things I wanted to say. So if you go to Amazon and you go to Zoe Quinn's book, you'll find that it has 53% 5-star ratings, 36% 1-star, 5% 2-star, 1% 3-star, and 5% 4-star. So there's like a bit of a swing of negative reviews, but they're not quite as many as positive ones. I guess that shows some kind of promise, perhaps, that there are people that are starting to question this shit. But didn't
her mom give it a bad review?
Her mother? I don't know. I don't know. That'd be great.
That was going around on Twitter, and I don't know if it was ever confirmed. But yeah, that has been said at the very least.
Davey,
honey, Gamergate did nothing wrong. Sorry, Brian.
No, it's okay. Most Undesired made a comment saying, I will buy you that book if it'll get you to read it, Brian. Okay. If you want to. Nightwish Fan 1991 gives us $5 and says this book belongs in science fiction genre fantasy. So if you
that's only because science fiction doesn't have a genre for nightmares.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got one other thing to say.
Okay.
Calling Clementine Ford a whore is an insult to whores everywhere. Whores provide a damn good service for the money they make. Clementine Ford does not deserve that level of respect.
No.
Mercedes Carrera, she's a fucking saint. Don't you even dare.
No, she's absolutely a saint.
Yeah, Clementine Ford, she's a bestial woman. Okay, so one of the things that I thought was really funny is I looked at Zoe Quinn's reviews, and I thought I'd see what the 1-star reviews gave. Now, there is a meme or like a funny Amazon thing that I saw. You can find it on Imgur, or you can probably go to Amazon and see it. Have you guys ever heard of the sugar-free gummy bears? So, what? Do you know? Okay.
Oh.
No. So, the sugar-free gummy bears, okay, you could buy them on Amazon, and then the sugar substitute, whatever it is, I don't know what it's called, that goes into the sugar-free gummy bears acts like, apparently, according to the reviews that were written about it, some kind of insanely powerful laxative. So when you eat the gummy bears, it flushes you out. It's like the gummy bear cleanse, okay? Somebody, so when they're being reviewed, if you look up the sugar-free gummy bears on Amazon, look up the reviews, and you will see that there are people writing like hilarious reviews about their experience with these gummy bears and like where they were when they ate them and what their poop was like and everything else. They're very, very fucking funny. So one that is in particular is like extra long. That's really great. That somebody wrote. It's like the legendary review. It's like the funniest one, or at least the biggest one. And somebody took that review word for word and replaced gummy bears with Crash Override, the book. So basically, the experience of reading the Crash Override Network book that Zoe Quinn wrote is identical to eating sugar-free gummy bears, and they just replaced the entire review with the language from the gummy bear review, and just changed the subject from being about the gummy bears to being about the books. And it's actually pretty funny. So some people were having some fun with that. And also, there was something else. This is not unrelated, but I got to say it because it's about the Hillary Clinton book. Apparently, the Hillary Clinton book, which did have a lot of negative reviews too when I was looking it up, okay? Now, there are only positive reviews.
No.
Yes, the negative reviews have disappeared.
Oh, are you surprised?
I'm not. Not at all. No. Observing Libertarian gives us $10 and writes, whores are capitalists plying an honest trade by providing a valuable service to willing customers, voluntarily paying for said services. Whores are respectable. Clementine is not. So,
Clementine Ford is a bleeding, inflammatory wound upon the ass of humanity.
That's right. And I hope she gets butt pimples. But yes.
Just sorry to be so immature, but can you please link me to like that no sugar gummy bear page?
Yeah.
I just want to write a review that's like, hey, you ever been to Wendy's and had one of those Frosties?
And I'm sure sugar-free gummy bears should come right the fuck up. It's the Haribo Gold Bears. I'm pretty sure it's these. I gotta see though.
Okay.
No, 5 pound. Maybe it's this one, the 1 pound.
It's just don't unless it's a gift for someone you hate. Is the name of the review?
It's my ex.
I have it right here. I believe this is probably this has to be the one.
Give me the link.
It's all right. Let me get it for you.
Just put it in here so that Max has it. You don't have to give it to me.
Oh, I'm in the wrong chat. Damn it.
Put it in the live show.
The gummy bear. By the way, I love how you termed it. The gummy bear sounds like the only type of diet I would ever go on.
That is the title of another review. The gummy bear cleanse.
I don't know if it's
right.
the gummy bear cleanse. Yeah.
I'm pretty certain. Well, actually, no. It's in the first or the second sentence of the review. It starts out, "Oh man, words cannot express what happened to me after eating these. The gummy bear cleanse. If
That's
you
it.
are someone that can tolerate the sugar substitute, enjoy. If you are like the dozens of people that tried my order, run."
Yeah, that's the one. That's exactly the one. And they all they did was just replace gummy bear with Crash Override. And it's the Crash Override cleanse. It's exactly what they wrote. Oh man, words cannot express what happened to me after reading this. The Crash Override cleanse. If you are someone that can tolerate the fact substitute, enjoy. If you are like the dozens of people that tried my order, run. First of all, for fiction, I would rate this a 5. So good, soft, true to fantasy, fruit flavor, like the genre variety. I was a happy camper. But, or should I say but, with 2 T's, not long after reading about 20 pages of this, all hell broke loose. I had a gastrointestinal experience like nothing I've ever imagined. Cramps, sweating, bloating beyond my worst nightmare. I've had food poisoning from some bad shellfish, and that was almost like a skip in the park compared to what was going on inside me. And it continues. It's basically a better piece of literature than Zoe's book. So you may as well go to the review page on Crash Override, How Gamergate Destroyed My Life. the book and just go to the negative reviews and read those. You will definitely get your clicks worth.
Do it because laughter boosts your immune system, and it's fall, so cold and flu season is coming up, and you need it.
Yeah.
Do it because it's the best medicine.
Nightwish Fan 1991 gives us $5 and writes, but according to Hillary, the media is controlled by conservatives, and they were too hard on her. Yes, I remember her saying that. I almost died laughing. Scott Malave gave us $5 and says, they removed the Haribo. The Amazon one has the reviews. I guess you'll have to get that from... You may have to just go look into Imgur or something, but you can find it. Ryan Field gives us $5.99 and says, I shall pay to hear you continue. Well, thank you.
You talking about the Amazon review, that they can't find the Amazon review?
Well, they said it's on Amazon, but I guess it's not the Haribo. I don't know. What brand is it?
It just says customer review.
Oh, yeah, it just has the
review.
Review.
What I did was I looked up some of the terms I remembered from it, and yeah.
Oh,
I looked
yeah, it's right here.
Amazon Bears, Gummy Bears review funny, and then some of the things I remembered from it, and that brought this right up.
Well, yeah, so just check it out. It's pretty funny. We got the link right here. So The Great Indoor 1979 says, are HBR going to talk about the Emmys? No, I mean, I don't know. It was just, nobody watched it. I think that's basically the only thing you can say about it. Nobody watched it.
Well, could point out the fact that the Emmys have been irrelevant for most of our lives.
But it's also had the worst ratings in a while. I think last year's Oscars also had really bad ratings.
They're like the literally Who's of television and
like nobody, people are not. They're tired of the virtue signaling. Yeah. Though it's like it really is exhausting. And I didn't even know it came on. I think the reason why the ratings are so bad for these things is because so few people watch TV now. I don't think that a lot of people watch television, specifically on the channels that usually advertise for the Oscars and the Emmys and the music awards and all that shit. So
well, there's an award show for everything now. I would not be surprised if somewhere out there's an award show for the biggest pimple on your ass. I mean, it's gotten that to the point where they're giving out awards for everything. Yeah. I mean, like, people would watch the Oscars when it was a way to be greatly entertained while getting to see, the stars that had the great and really touching performances of the last year get rewarded for it. Mm-hmm. When you felt that they really deserved their reward, and they would go up there and they would be enthusiastic about it, and they were always thanking the people that helped them and everything, and that was it. And you didn't there was no politics in it. It was a very feel-good thing. And then they started getting political, and they started like giving out awards for more and more trivial reasons in more and more shows, and it's gotten to the point like it's ruined it, really.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really have anything to say about the Emmys. They're just lame. And a lot of people have already talked about it. But going back to this Gamergate thing, so we're going to be wrapping up at 6:39. We can do the after show. And then I want to eat my rib dinner. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read the Inside Gamergate, A Social History of the Gamer Revolt, which is James Desborough's view, for free. Otherwise, you can get it on paperback for $8.72. It is probably much more concise and honest. James Desborough we've had on the show many times. If you want to get both sides, feel free to get both books, but I have a feeling that James Desborough's accounts will probably be better. And maybe Ian Miles Chong could also read his book and give us his views on that, because, hey, again, he was on both sides of this whole thing. So now we're going to be getting ready to wrap up the show. Before we do, I want to show you what we're going to be talking about in the after show. We're going to be talking about comics. I've been talking a lot with a couple of the comic book YouTubers, and we've been seeing things unfold. One, this is super interesting. There is a Comic-Con in Portland, Oregon called the Rose City Comic-Con. They are banning Hydra and Red Skull cosplays. because it's too much like Nazis and fascists, and they're very anti-fascist these days, which means they can't even allow fictional characters made by Jews
as bad guys, by the way,
as villains for their stories, because it's just too triggering for people. So
can't remind people that Nazis were the bad guys.
Yeah, can't do that. Can't do that. Because a person who dresses up as the Red Skull is probably sympathizing with the Red Skull's beliefs and wants to acquire the Cosmic Cube, I guess. And
then, Hugo Weaving.
That's just like, you know, when I cosplay as Samara from The Ring, I run around giving people 7 days to live.
That's what you want to do, right?
That's exactly right.
And the other thing is, another story we're going to look at is PSA, one of the biggest proponents of firing Aubrey Sitterson, is a well-known anti-diversity troll campaign. Aubrey Sitterson is basically a writer for a new G.I. Joe comic. I remember in the 80s, the G.I. Joe comics were pretty hardcore and pretty badass, actually. And this Aubrey Sitterson person is an anti... He basically just hates the whole idea of G.I. Joe because it's masculine, because it's warlike, because whatever... and he's been shitting on it while he's been writing it. This has actually been a trend that we've been noticing, where people who hate the source material in comics are writing stories for it, and then what they do is they use it as a platform to talk about their personal beliefs and politics, which of course no one wants to hear. And as a result, various comic book YouTubers who have more subscriptions than they have comic book sales, I'm not kidding, this is true, have been criticizing them online. And so Bleeding Cool, which is the latest in anti-customer, I guess, comic book journalism or nerd culture journalism, has written an article about this, saying the reason why Aubrey Sitterson is possibly getting fired or has been fired is because of the trolls online. So we're going to be looking at that. Specifically, they name the comic book YouTubers that I was talking about, such as Diversity in Comics. If you don't know who Diversity in Comics is, you should go subscribe if you care about comic books. He's really good. He's got experience in the industry. He knows how it works. And he does a lot of content. So, anyway, that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. I want to thank Hannah, Mike, and Max for coming on with me. And I want to thank you guys for watching. As you can see, the chat now will display your comments from every chat you're in. So no matter where you watch us from, you should be able to comment. And you might notice that it's a little bit stabler today. I don't know if there were any problems with the stream, but it seemed like there were no issues. But if there ever are, try Twitch. You could still comment. We'll see your comments. I'll comment on them if I find this interesting. So feel free to do that. And yeah, so I want to thank you guys for coming on. And we're doing everything we can to try to make the experience a little bit better every time, as you can see. So feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, share, discuss things in the comments section. I know that, you know, some of the stuff that we talked about was opinion based, and I'm more than welcome to listen to what you guys have to say. I don't pretend to have all the info or the facts on any of the stories, so if you want to bring some perspective or additional information, I am totally open to seeing it. I look forward to seeing your comments, and we're going to head into the after show now. So I want to thank you guys again for coming on, and have a lovely, lovely